His name sounds like he's a movie star. You follow him on IG, you'll see that Kiran Mistry is not necessarily a movie star, but you're a star, Kieran. And I'm so glad that you, 11 hours ahead of me missing the time zones, would join us on this podcast. How are you?
I'm very good. Thank you very much, Mark, for having me on the podcast. Yeah, well, I think we were supposed to schedule it for an hour later my time, but we got there. I was at home anyway, so this is brilliant.
Well, it works out good. For the folks who are just tuning in, it's 9 a.m. Eastern time where I am. It's 8 o'clock p.m. in Hanoi, Vietnam, where Kieran is. Okay, Kieran,
Certainly is.
let's tell
Yes.
people about you. I found you by happenstance, fortunately, on IG.
Yep.
And I was just drawn to the athletic nature, the athletic kind of bent that you brought to all your fitness and your exercises and stuff. And then I see you with young people and adults and golfers of all skill levels, just helping them become athletes with their golf swing. So give us the quick bio, man. How did you come to where you are?
You're about how did I get to Vietnam and be doing what I'm doing, basically.
Yeah, a British boy to Vietnam. How did that happen?
It was, I don't know, like, do you know, like after I left university, I studied applied sport and exercise. Was in and out of a few jobs doing some personal training, working with like rehab work with some patients. And ended up trying to set up my own business. I played golf as a young kid since I was like 11 years old. And I went down the route of trying to set up my own business at the age of 22 after I left university, when I was coming out of a few jobs. And that sort of failed. It was in golf rehab performance training in the UK. And I think it was really early days, you know, like Tiger was just sort of bringing this stuff out into the world. And, you know, like not many people were getting onto the whole golfers are really these athletic, you know, role models like you see in other sports.
Yeah.
So it didn't really take off for me. And then I luckily ended up getting a job at the Lee Westwood Golf School. So I was the head of golf performance there for just under 18 months.
All right.
And then as I left there to just travel. I sort of was a bit sick of the UK. The weather was sort of putting me off. And then I ended up in Thailand at this point. And after I was doing a bit of traveling for a year there, I got a phone call from a coach. It was my old coach at Westwood, called Michael Welch. He's actually, I don't know if you might have heard of him.
Yeah, I know Michael, former player in the DP European Tour. I know Michael.
Yeah, Mike's a good friend, and do you know what? One hell of a coach. I actually picked up some golden information from him over the time that I worked with him, and he's actually a lot of his stuff or his teaching methods and the way that he instructs and taught me, I've sort of like just developed it and veered it into this the golf fitness stuff that you see on Instagram. But going back is sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say because I remember Welchie. He was, you know, back in his day, he came out and he was kind of the next star. You know, everyone had eyes on him, and there was a lot of pressure, and perhaps he didn't fulfill what he was capable of doing. But I remember his swing, and then I watched what you do, and it begs the question for me, Kieran, is like, you played some golf. When I watch you exercise with people, it's dynamic. And I don't want to scare people off, but man, you got people moving fast and athletically and dynamically. And I'm sort of wondering, was this developed through all your experience, or was this always kind of inside of you that you just had to get out?
I think in the beginning, do you know when like you go through like this early model, you sort of focus as a fitness instructor, as a PT, or as if you're going down the athletic development track with performance training. I think you always go by the book, right? You sort of stick to, you know, like your normal training models, like your strength, your speed, your basic foundations of flexibility. And then I think over time of just experience and spending time with like Michael, Pete Cowan came down, Westwood came down, and then I worked at the Ernie Els Academy in Vietnam, which was the flagship one here. Some amazing golf coaches there as well. And over time, I think I've just picked little things that they've really taught well, but their students have had trouble integrating into their golf swings.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've tried to tie it in with the golf fitness aspect. And I think, like what you said there, is that's where I guess my experience in working with all these guys has sort of like come together.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing, right? And we've had lots of fitness trainers on here, and I've been in golf instruction since Michael Welch was playing on the DP World Tour. So it ages me. Here's the thing: all of the exercises I see you post, it's I'm looking at a golf swing without the golf club in your client or your student's hands, and that's why I gravitated toward you, because people think fitness and they think, oh, geez, I've got to go to the gym, and now I've got to squat, and now I've got to bench press, and now I've got to do all this sort of stuff. Where yours is very much, okay, this is the swing, this is an athletic move, and this is how you can help yourself to be more athletic doing X, Y, or Z.
So don't get me wrong here. Like, I think the foundational aspect, like, your squatting, your bench pressing, all those types of movements are key, in like development. But when it comes to like the athletic movement that your work going on to here, is I just feel like a lot of, and correct me if I'm going off track here, but I just feel like a lot of trainers here might miss the concept of, like, golf is still a sport, and the more specified the movement is to that sport, the more you can elicit the response that you want in the actual golf swing.
You're preaching, Reverend.
Yeah.
You are.
You like that one?
Oh, I'm completely on board. It's the perfect segue. You've done this before. By the way, this is his first podcast appearance, Tribe, around the world. So we are going to introduce him. You're perfect segue. You're like a pro. There's one or two exercises about the golf swing I want to talk about, because they're the ones that attracted me, and we can direct people over there. But just
don't pick the hard ones.
No, just today. No, I picked the ones, just so you know, because if you turn on the internet and you type golf swing or golf fitness or whatever, you will hear the buzzwords: early extension, shallow the golf club, wrist alignments, the thing, right?
Yeah.
So you've got this all covered with your stuff and more. And to that, this morning I just click onto your page, and you've just released, so my timing is perfect, 7 exercises to warm up. And it basically will take 10 minutes, if I understand you correctly. And I want to zip through them quickly, because a golfer doesn't need a golf club for this. And when I looked at this, when you go to a typical club, and everyone listening, and even yours truly here, when I do get to play, a warm up for me is like 1 or 2 bends over and stretch my hamstrings, and maybe a side bend if I'm lucky. Then I swing back and forth, and then I hope for my best. And it's not. So let's start with this, because I look at the movements and I see it's athletic. I see it builds strength and mobility and flexibility and all these sorts of things. So you keen to go?
Yeah, well, I can. If you want me to demonstrate, I can do. I can just flick the iPad over a little bit, and we can.
Let's do it.
I get going.
So while you flick it over for the, so you do your thing, I'll talk.
Yes, sir.
While Kieran's getting himself situated. Say again?
Are you going to join me on this?
Hell no, I'm behind the microphone. While Kieran's getting set up, people, these are 7 exercises to warm up that'll take you about 10 minutes. And I'm going to team up, and while he just demonstrates, we can talk to him as well. The first...
Sorry, Mike.
Yes.
Can you can see me here. If I'm out of shot, just let me know as well.
No, you're perfect right there. For the audio folks, just go and search for Mark Millman on YouTube, subscribe, and you can watch. Kieran is a handsome man with a cool beard. It's not as gray as mine. Cap on back. He's in a squat position, ready to go. The first, Kieran, is a seated A-frame opener. Now, I do a version of this, which really gets me in my sort of groins, hip area. But I love the fact that you brought this sort of dynamic movement to it. So show me the seated A-frame opener, please.
Yeah, so actually, just quickly, this warm-up that we've done is not a specific one for, say, your round of golf, but we did this for our junior golfer. She just won the national championship here, and it was her lower body loading session. So we sort of just did a quick mobilization and activation on that.
All right, cool.
So it's just mainly focused around the lower body, but we do incorporate a lot of thoracic mobility into it as well.
Right.
So seated A-frame, wide stance. If you've ever heard of the Asian squat, it's where you can sit into this position where the heels sit on the ground, and basically you're going to be pressing the knees out.
Yeah.
All right, hands on the ground, and then you're raising up towards the ceiling. And as you're doing this, what you want to really focus on is just applying pressure down through the ground and following the fingertips with your eyes, and you'll feel the thoracic spine open up as far as you can go. The other thing to note is when you're in this squat position, and if you haven't done it before, you'll feel the activation through your glutes and your quads. And it's just a very simple exercise. One, to mobilize the hips so you can open them, to mobilize the thoracic spine, and you can do some muscle activation as well.
It's fantastic. Okay, to describe for the audio folks, Kieran went down into a squat, fairly wide stance with his elbows between his knees, then put both hands on the ground, kept a palm on the ground, then sort of rotated open, reached for the sky. Just a mechanical question to this. I noticed as you did this, Kieran, that squatting position, you had your feet turned outward. Is that necessary to success? Because I feel like a lot of people, when they squat, kind of get the toes kind of north and south, if that makes sense.
You mean pointing forward like this?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So as you open the feet, I think you've got to understand it's like the femurs or the top part of the leg here. It'll internally rotate. So the wider you go, the knees are actually internally rotated here. So you have to allow the feet to come out. The femurs sit neutral. All right. And it's the same in a squat position. You still want the knees to track over the toes. So if you're in this position, or what I would like to call a power squat position, as you work back out, you can see that the knees track out and the feet are open. So they track in this direction, and it allows the hips and the spine to stay a little bit more neutral if you don't have that mobility.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, what I sort of like too is you go down that wide squat with the feet out and your elbows between your knees. For me, when I do that, it kind of feel like it opens up the hip area a little bit too, from all the sitting and driving in cars and stuff like that.
Massively. It's like we've done it with a junior in that recent Instagram video, but it's one of my favorite exercises that I'll get majority of our older guys and women to do prior to the yeah. I'm not pointing no fingers. Man.
No, I will say this for our elderly tribe members. I do it every day. I think it's a Malasana squat or something like that. We just go down to squat, elbows between the knees, and you kind of put your praying hands like this, and it really opens one up in your lower half. Okay, so that's number one.
You've done a bit of yoga before?
I'm hardly a pro, but I sort of learn from people like you, and then I do it once in a while. Because look, here's the thing, and I'm sort of emblematic of most golfers who want to get better. We play a decent game or whatever. We've taken lessons, but we also work, and we're also parents, and there's these other commitments. So golf is the passion, but and we want to do it well, but our bodies aren't prepared for it. So I'm doing as much as possible. That's why I'm big on, breathing and yoga and all these sorts of disciplines to get holistic about who we are and not just go, well, I've got to shallow my downswing to play better because I might not be able to because my body is just not, equipped for lack of a better word for it.
Yeah. Well, I think what you've nailed something on the head there. Like the breathing part for me is like a huge component that we actually incorporate a lot, but you don't actually see it as much on our Instagram. It helps reduce stiffness or tightness in the muscle tissue. It helps improve mobility if you actually can control your breathing or your breath work, especially through the thoracic spine.
Yeah.
And it helps elicit a lot of speed. When you can learn how to breathe correctly or in rhythm or in sync with the timing of your golf swing, you'll actually be surprised at how much more power or how much more efficient you can be with generating club head speed as well.
Okay, this always happens on this podcast because I listen. There's a golfer who plays in the South African tour. He played in the DP World Tour. He and his father were boxers, and he's got an idiosyncratic swing, let's call it this, but he hits the ball powerfully. And when he swings, he breathes in on the backswing and he forcibly exhales on the downswing. And you can actually hear him doing this. And not only does it activate him, like you point out, it also times him because it's beautiful timing between back and down, and it's guided by the life force and the breath.
Yeah, it's like I guess you use it as like a metronome.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. I think I'm gonna try and try it my next golf swing, see if we can get another 20 yards. But it'll probably end up in the wrong fairway.
That's for another show. Okay, so the seated A-frame openers, how many times? Yep. How many times?
So I've actually, if you're gonna do this as a warm up, one set and do 15 repetitions on each side, just enough to elicit like a mobility extension or a pattern, and then also a muscle activation as well.
Radio. Number 2, the alternating lunge opener. Now, personally, I have a PT that I work with. He calls it part of a flow stretch that he does, where you basically go down and you go like this. And I see all golf. I see this on the PGA Tour ranges when I'm out there, that all golfers will pretty well do this alternating lunge opener. So show us that, please.
Yeah. So what we're going to do is, again, for you guys who are listening, an alternating lunge opener, you ideally start in like a push-up position.
Yeah.
Okay. Show the shoulders, work straight or parallel straight all the way down to the heels. And then from here, as you're doing this movement, what I would like you to do is just push and drive one of your legs to outside of the palms. And when you're in this position, you want to try and drive the hips down and then raise that hand that's closest to the leg up towards the ceiling, similar to that A-frame position. So follow your fingertips and then back down, bring the foot back and then alternate and then raise again. And again, when you're doing this, what you should really be focusing on is, as you get out into that extension, is just squeeze the core, because that's another key area that you really want to try and focus and activate whilst you're doing these warm-up movements.
Yeah, for the folks listening, imagine a plank, but not on your elbows, with your palms and your hands right under your shoulders. And then what Kieran would do is he'd basically raise his right foot and bring it up to where his right hand was. And so you almost replace your foot position or your hand position with your foot. Then you take that right hand and you rotate to the sky. This one is real. And if you engage the core and lower the pelvis, man, this thing hits you in spots where it's painful at times, for me, certainly.
You feel that spot or that pain point around the hip flexors,
or
exactly. Like within the hip itself.
And the hip flexors are hugely important to keeping, spine, pelvis shape throughout the golf swing, all those sorts of things. If you're one of those early extenders, this one is really preparing you to be strong enough through that pelvis area, the hip area, to hold your 100%. Shape through the golf swing, right?
100%, yeah. And again, like it's just giving you a little bit more pliability. One of the biggest things that I see, and I'm sure you've seen it over the years, is you see that discrepancy between like amateur golfers who don't do a warm up, and usually the first 6 holes are pretty mediocre, and then they tend to sort of get into the stride after this point, and they're just like, oh yeah, it's just taking me a little while to warm up. So I think it's very important that you do need to do sort of these movements, especially to activate and mobilize, because like you said, it'll stop you from those bad habits.
Okay, let's you and me start a movement here, okay? Because no, I'm serious. Because everyone listens to this podcast. This is an informed audience. People download to improve their games. And the people who are listening to our show are also seeking out information elsewhere. And so they go for a lesson, and they're the person who they lose the pelvis shape in the downswing, and the pressure in the feet's all over the show. The swing path's up to maggots. And then the instructor, their pro's like, well, you got to keep your butt behind your heels and rotate properly. And then you'll show videos of someone doing that. And the learner is like, yes, I'm going to do this. It's me. And then they try to, and they can't, because the body isn't prepared to be able to make the move. So they try and they fail, and they try and they fail. And eventually they're like, screw it. I'm going to be basically bound to my mistake for the rest of my days.
Yeah. Well, I think what I've noticed here is, you tend to, if this occurs, like, and it's no fault of the golf coach necessarily. The golf coach is actually is instructing you in the way that they've been taught or whatever, but it's the physical limitations that stop you from actually doing that movement. And I've seen it plenty of times here where, you can go to a golf coach and after 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 lessons, you're still working on that same movement pattern because you've just not ingrained it. And it's at that point where you go, all right, there must be something physically wrong that I need to open up or decipher, to get this. Because a lot of people can get a new movement pattern or behavior change. It's just, does their body allow them to do it? Do they have that pattern within them, or can they ingrain it?
Yeah, and I'll say this too. I mean, I before my eyes, I'm seeing the thrust of this podcast beginning to change because of what you're teaching me. And not only is this a golf swing thing, these 7 movements, but if you devote 10 minutes in the morning before shower or whatever, this is for overall well-being as well, because the legs, the hips, I mean, this is almost the center of our being.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I think making it into your daily lifestyle is like key. Once you change that habit and that lifestyle, it just becomes normal that you'll feel more mobile, more flexible, more activated, and you're just sort of ready for day-to-day activities as well,
Okay, help me then, because now I'm thinking on the shadow side of things, right? So the first time I've done one of these stretches, it gets demonstrated to me, then I do my version of it, and they are like night and day compared to where I'm able to get to and where the instructor is. And then I'm feeling wildly inferior, and I'm like, I suck, blah, blah, blah. So that stuff starts to happen.
Okay.
Talk to us about the progressive development and the nature thereof, because, we all think we were back in our teens, and then for us 50-somethings, it catches up with you. So tell people that they're not going to look like some yogi in the blink of an eye on the first go, and it's going to get progressively better if you're disciplined.
You want me to tell them that?
I want you to help people's motivation, because like the first time I tried to do this stuff, I'm like, no, I hurt everywhere. This is difficult. I suck. And I went through all these emotions. And instead of breathing through the thing, I was more concerned with how crappy I looked while I was trying to do it.
Yeah. I know exactly what you mean. So I guess regardless from anybody, you'll always have a starting point. Yeah. And that starting point, whether it's you're at an advanced level or at a beginner level, I think all you guys need to take out of it, or whoever's doing this, is you're already doing better than that person who's not started, right? Regardless of what level you're starting at. And by doing these movements, you can only realistically go in one direction, all right? Unless you're going to injure yourself. You can only really go in one direction. So you've got to stick with that consistency in that process. And over time, you will see that improvement. Don't look at it as like, I'm going to get it in one session, because that's just not realistic. Like, it takes time, it takes consistency, and it takes dedication at the end of the day.
Okay. To the injury thing, that's a great point. Because when someone does this, who's new at it, it's going to hurt, but it's not like painful. It's not that like sinister hurt, but it's hurting because you're stretching muscles and stuff. Talk about, breathing into the pain, if you will. And each time as you take a breath, you just kind of lower into the stretch that little bit more, instead of just kind of being where you are. And whereas that's challenging the body, but not kind of diving deeper, kind of leaning more into it, if that makes sense.
So as you're going into the stretch and you're taking that deep breath to sort of like force that movement or that stretch it a little bit deeper.
Yes.
So one of the things here is when we're doing a certain type of like training, especially in a warm up, what you want to do is just keep the movement as dynamic as possible.
Okay.
When we try to elicit like movement, say, Mark, if you were doing something for yourself and you came to see me and you went, okay, like I'm really struggling in creating a big rotation here. We identify that some of your tissue on your lats is extremely tight, and we need to lengthen it, for example. So whenever we're doing all these static movements, then again, what we'll do is, for example, if we're doing a rotation with a band that's pulling our arm here, creating that length within our lats, what I want to actually get the student or yourself to do is, as you're going through this maximum rotation, is when you feel the stretch at its limit, is once you inhale and take that deep breath, what happens is the rib cage opens or expands, and as you relax, what happens? The tissue's gone bigger, and as you've relaxed, it stayed at that length, but now it can go a little bit further, and it helps that stretch just to, like expand a little bit more.
Exactly what I was looking for. That kind of, I'm getting out of order because what he just showed there, folks, was Kieran was in a wide stance, making a backswing and reaching with the lead arm and really like stretching away from himself as the torso was rotating. That is the fourth of these 7 moves. And you talk about the kneeling lat rolls. It's something I love. Please show it and talk about it.
Say again, I can't hear you there.
The kneeling lat roll. Show us that one.
There we go. Okay. So I actually just demonstrated the standing versions.
Okay.
So it's a very similar thing. I'll just tip this down for you guys so you can see a little bit better. All right. And again, you can do this with a golf club or a stick. If you're out on the range, then make sure it's dry, put a towel down or something. But all you're going to be doing is pushing the knees out. And I would recommend when you're doing this is push the knees out quite wide so you elicit like the hip flexors to open as well. All right. Mark, if you want to ask any questions, by all means, go ahead.
No,
whilst you're doing this, is place one hand, put it in front so you've got enough room. I can show you from the side here. So enough room to pop the hands underneath. And then as you're doing this movement, you want to try and drop the shoulder down towards the ground and reach as far as you possibly can. Okay, when you're in here, again, if you want to add a little bit more, you can raise the arm up and try and rotate, again, following the eyes to the fingertips and then back up. Was that quite cool? You made a smirk there, which I thought you seemed impressed with that.
No, that what he showed with the addition of the arm raise, folks, was real. What Kieran's done there was he was down on all fours, basically on hands and knees, and then he would take his left arm, put it out in front of him, then with the right arm, reach underneath the left and try and sort of run the arm along the ground as the right shoulder would drop to the turf. This is like the ultimate. If someone's, can't get as far back in the golf swing or even as far through, doing this both ways will really, really start to develop the body and prep for that.
Yeah, you feel that torsion or that twisting section on the spine as well. But like, again, it's not painful, and go to a range where you feel comfortable. Like, not everybody's going to be able to get their shoulder and arm completely flat on the ground, but you'll still feel that pull through the lat. You'll feel the torsion or the spine mobilizing. And again, the wider you have your hips, you'll feel those hip flexors or the hip joints open up as well.
Love it. The alternating lunges, you said 15 for the seated A-frame, I guess 15 for the lunge. How about this? How about these kneeling lat rolls? How many of those should we do?
I'd probably keep these, like, we're going to keep this warm up to less than 10 minutes. So if you're going to reduce the number of reps, anywhere between like 12 and 15 reps should be absolutely fine as well.
Perfect. All right, lovely. Okay, I got ahead of myself. Let's get to the squat hold extensions, please. You can do it right as you are there. I can see you.
Right, in the video, I'm just going to point this out for you. That was the best amount of range I've had in my hamstrings in a long time, just because I'd warmed up. So don't judge me off this next one, all right? So these ones, I'll move a little bit further out. So you can see me face on here, and I'll do it sideways as well. But basically, you're going to start in and grab say the balls of your feet are around the feet here, and go into that low squat position. From here, what I would like you to do is you're going to just keep your hands on the feet and extend the hips up as far as you can. And I'm going to show you from the side. Don't laugh, Mark.
All
right. So from here, as you're extending up, the goal is to try and get those legs as straight as possible. And that's probably as far as I can get them at the moment. My student in the video has no issues in getting them straight, whereas I'm the complete opposite.
No, I know. So what Kieran's done there, people, is he's went into the squat position. He's basically grabbed his feet with his hands, right? So you hold onto the feet, and then you're just trying to raise your bum into the air. So it's like doing
straighten the legs, basically.
Like doing a hamstring stretch. I can't help the people because I can see someone right now going, I'm going to do this, and then they can only get like halfway up, let alone 3/4 of the way up, let alone straight legs. But each time, just a breath and try and just go that little bit further each time as you do one of these. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Like, let me just demonstrate here. So basically, as you're doing this movement, one of the things that I would like to do, I usually get our students to do, is as you're pushing this point up, is once you get to that maximum range, is take that deep breath, just relax the hips a little bit. So you're going down into like a little partial squat again, and then add another stretch into it again, take a deep breath, and then push through that range of movement. And you'll quite quickly notice that you can get that full stretch through the hamstring and mobilize the spine as well.
What's funny, people, audio listeners, as Kieran was doing that, the last couple he did, he actually got his legs straighter than the first one. So this to me looks like it's progressive. I mean, you're not going to pop up there perfectly the first time, but just a little bit deeper each time when you do this.
Yeah, like especially like you get up in the morning, most people will feel stiff, tight. You know, doing these a few times, I think that's why you shouldn't just do the static movement. Is go through those like breathing, dynamic stretches, which elicits or helps that tissue get a little bit longer, a little bit more blood flowing, warming up. So yeah, they will go up to the maximum range, but in 10 minutes, I'm sure the guys on tour do a little bit longer than 10 minutes, but
yeah,
for the average golfer, it's enough.
But the reality is, people listen to this. It's 10 minutes to improve your propensity to make better golf swings. And it's 10 minutes to feeling better too, because all of us have these aches and pains that are largely a function of muscle and fascia tightness and stuff. Yes?
100%.
Right, lovely. We've done 4, we got 3 more.
Yeah.
Extension dropbacks.
Yes.
Show us, please.
So these are, I haven't got it's for my knees here, but it should be all right. So an extension drop back is, again, it's mainly for the hamstrings.
Okay.
And again, what you're going to do is go into a half kneeling position. All right. So for you guys that are listening, it's a half kneeling position. When you pop your hands, I want both hands to go down onto the ground. So they go out in like a diagonal fashion rather than out in front.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Again, it'll make it easier for you to rock back and forth here. And then what you're going to do is you're going to just try and drive. It just changes side. You're going to try and drive the knee back and straighten the leg. Okay. And then just to accentuate that movement is just drop the hips down further and then go back to this spot where you're trying to drive that leg completely straight. And your hamstrings get hit quite a lot there.
Yeah, this one will be challenging if you've got tight hamstrings, and most of us do. Folks, if you imagine the alternating lunge, this is kind of a variation thereof where Kieran's down on one knee, he raises the other knee out in front of him, diagonally out in front of him, hands on the ground. Then you basically just rock back and forth until the foot that's forward, the leg that's forward, goes from bent to straight. This is also one of those things I don't feel like one can rush through. You're going to sort of got to let this, loosen up, and each one just try and get it a bit deeper. Am I right?
Yeah. One of the things, this is probably one of the hardest ones out of the lot, just because I think it's probably one of the truest hamstring stretches that you can do.
Okay.
And you'll feel it both at the insertion and the origin point, and at the back of the knee and underneath the glutes. That's where you tend to feel this one like really heavily, and in most people this is the area which usually gets quite tight, just because of the way that you're sitting all day, the knees flexed all day, and these areas are just going to be like super stiff.
Well, that's the thing. This is self-serving, this question. When I do any sort of hamstring stuff, I kind of feel it almost on the top of my calf muscle. Is this correct?
You can do, because you've got basically a lot of the insertion points around this area. And when you're doing this stretch, though, one thing, Mark, is to notice if you're feeling tight around this area, as you're bringing, can you see the lead leg there?
Yes.
As you're bringing that leg back, again, if you want to feel a little bit more of a stretch through the tissue in the calf or the lower portion of the knee, is bring the toes up as high as you can, and then the opposite would be point the toes down as well.
Yeah.
So you want to feel it at the top of the knee and then down through the hamstring. So you can change the area in which you find in that stretch, or wherever you feel that stiffness.
So the modification there, audio folks, was Kieran was in that squat position, knee on the ground, other leg out in front, and he went from a pointed toe basically to a flexed foot, just to change the stretch or the location of the stretch. Okay, we've done the drop backs from the side extension. Hamstring single leg depressions. This sounds depressing, but I'll let you go.
Say again.
Hamstring single leg depressions.
Hamstring single leg.
Yeah.
Where are we at here? You're gonna have to give me a second there.
This is number 6 on your list.
On my list. Let me just give me a second there, Mark.
You got it.
I'm gonna have to actually find this one. I've got that many under this similar names that I'm actually struggling.
No problem. Let me try and describe it because I've got it open next to me here. It's going through the 7th thing. I'll tell you what, let's put this aside for a second. Number 7 of 7 is the quad hip extensions.
A second here. There we go. We've got them on here now.
All right.
So where were we at? Number 6, right?
Yes. Hamstring single depressions. That's kind of
do you know what? Did you mention the side extensions on the last one?
Yeah, I did. I think I got you confused. The side extension.
Yeah. So, sorry. The side one's a very similar thing, but it's just sideways. So I'll demonstrate that one now for you.
All right, go for it.
All right. So basically, it's the same thing as the single leg depression, but we're just doing it sideways.
All right.
So you're going out into this side lunge position. So what I would like you to do is try and create as much extension through the hip as possible. Okay. And then go down into a low plank with the arms. Okay. And then what you want to do is just try and depress as you're pushing that foot out as far as possible, is depress the hip down as far as you can. And you'll feel it basically on the inner portion of the leg and right in that hip joint itself, just completely opening up. And then you want to rock forward and then rock back through this movement.
This to me looks super cool. It also looks super difficult. Audio listeners, imagine a Cossack squat, where you go down, if you're on your feet and you stretch your one leg out to your side and then you lower into a squat. Well, Kieran's doing this off his knees. And then he does that, he's basically allowing his rear end to go backward and then back to neutral and backward. It's again, I think this is one of these that'll really hit you in the areas that it counts, but it's also one of those where people aren't going to get their pelvis as low to the ground initially as what they're going to see when they watch your IG account.
Yeah. So if you actually try to do this movement, you don't have to stretch the leg out as far as possible.
Okay.
Bring it into a point where you find it comfortable. All right. But enough to at least feel that response within the hip joint itself. Okay, where the femur and the pelvis interact, that's where you want to feel that, and then down the inner portion of the leg, which is basically here. We found that actually doing a lot of this sort of stretching or movement just aids in, I don't know if you've seen it, but basically as you're going through impact is what a lot of people who exhibit early extension is to find the knee buckles and goes into this position. What we tend to want to feel is, again, that long, elongated or stretched movement or feeling here as you're pushing through, and you see that foot rolling on the inside, and it's the inner portion of the leg that basically creates this stretch. So this is one of the areas that we actually work on quite a lot when anybody falters.
Okay, I've now flipped from fan listener hat to golf instructor hat. What he just showed us is Kieran. If you're one of those golfers where you're swinging on the downswing and your trail heel pops straight off the ground, and your knee kicks out in the way and you lose all your body shape and you throw off the direction of your downswing, and then your coach is like, well, you've got to keep your foot more grounded, whatever, and you can't. The exercise that he just showed us will really, really begin to prep that area so you can get your legs looking a little bit more like a Rory McIlroy or someone of the like through contact. Imagine Justin Thomas, foot way off the ground with driver. Rory has got his legs planted and he's a whole lot more stable through contact.
So, like you said there, like there's two completely different golfers there. You've got Justin Thomas, who has the complete opposite, and Rory, who rolls heavily, or Tiger, who rolls heavily on that instep. Again, like I'm not saying that this is the correct way or you have to do it, but it elicits, if that's what your coach wants you to work on, that's a very simple stretch or something that you can do if you're feeling it difficult to get that.
I'm raising my hand. I'm a coach that wants you people to do that because I know this for certain. Every powerful, repeatable golf swing, not necessarily reliable, but repeatable, comes out of a good dynamic base. If your legs are all soupy and stuff underneath you, you make life a lot harder getting the down there through contact consistently.
Yeah, 100%. Like, I think that the stability in the base is basically a key fundamental that you need to have. As soon as you can pivot or rotate against that, the rest of it sort of just happens naturally. It's like basically having a coil that you've just gone like and wound it up at the top, and then when you're letting it go, it just fires by itself, you know.
Love it. Okay, last one. And then for the exit, for the other drills and stuff, people can go to your Instagram account, and you have a talk about that in a minute. Okay, last one. Quad hip extensions, please.
I think my knees are actually buckled, not having a nice soft floor right now. So if you're going to do it, make sure you've got a mat under your knees.
All right, gotcha.
All right, so quad hip extension. So again, you can do this away from the wall. We actually did this against the wall just because it was difficult for one of our students to go further because she'd just done a heavy leg day.
All right, gotcha.
I'll show you both versions. So if you want to place your feet against the wall and sit onto your heels, back goes against the wall. And what you're going to do is you're going to drive the hips up and as far forward as possible. You're going to extend the quadriceps here and the hip flexors itself, and then work back down and then repeat that movement. If you want to make it a little bit more difficult, Mark, I'm sure you can do this. Watch me fail at this now.
Whatever.
So you can go from this position and then we go into a lying down position. Hands go out wide, and then again, just raise the hips up there.
And people, if you're watching this, your eyes are going to pop out. And when you're trying it, your quads are going to feel like they are on fire. What Kieran's done there, right? He's basically gone onto his haunches with his feet underneath him, and he's eased his way up so his back is against a wall. And then from there, imagine doing a bridge. Well, from that, he's keeping the shoulders against the wall and pushing the pelvis up to the sky. This is tremendous. You know what? When I went into just this stretch the other day where I was basically on my knees with my feet behind me, and I tried to go down and just touch the ground with my elbows, I didn't feel like I could get there because it's across my ankles. Which thing too, because people don't talk about ankle mobility is crucial to good stability in the golf swing too. And this is not going to help your pelvis and everything else in your quads. It helps the ankle mobility, which is a big deal.
Yeah. Again, if you don't have that, you know, that mobility or the range around your ankles, like you were saying just there, is if you pop like if you've got a yoga block, pop them just basically under your shin bone, just where your ankles or your foot starts, and it will just aid you through, you know, rather than having them placed across the ground, because it does hurt, I guess, in some people. But again, just add that foam block to allow that little bit of extension or height around it, and it will help you with that extended movement of the hip as well.
Sensational stuff. 7 exercises to warm yourself up. I'm going to change this 7 exercises just to start your day.
I think that, you know what, that's what we should have called it, actually.
Well, you're more than welcome. And I wrote down here as you were showing all of these and talking about them, you said something that struck me. It's overcoming physical limitations. And those were your words. And I'm like, you know what? We don't have to be beholden to tightness in our body. We don't. We can either be the victim or we can be the overcomer. And 100%. If you do these, you're well on your way to overcoming not just golf swing stuff, but, you know, day-to-day stuff as well. That's why I actually love that we've gone this way with the show.
Yeah, I think, like, again, like you're in control of what you do with your body. It's basically your machine. Like whether you want to, shall we say, take care of it or not, is entirely up to you. It was funny, like we say this is, my girlfriend and I, we watched a TV show on Netflix a couple of weeks ago. It was called The Blue Zones, and it was I don't know if you've seen it.
I've seen that. Yeah, I've seen that.
And it was looking at the correlations of like how people live to, you know, like extend over 100 years old, and like they found some correlations about all these places, and one of them was the physical activity. You know, these people are in the 90s, their hundreds, and they're still doing physical activity, and you can see their routines are just, it's very simple of like, they sit on small stools, so they're squatting every day. They walk up and down hill, like the roads, but they're in a mountainous region, so it's like the quads are getting the strength work. When they sleep, they're not on like soft mattresses. In essence, they're a little bit harder, and the core plays a little bit more function. And it's just these little things. And for us to be able to, like do 10 minutes a day, it's not very difficult. But one, it'll help you golf, it'll help you day to day, but it'll probably help your longevity as well to play golf for longer.
Yeah. Okay, so I had a plan, people, to go through some really cool exercises, but I've kept him too long. So we'll do that another time. Or
I apologize.
No, this has been great. Or you can go to the Golf Athlete X. That is Kieran's Instagram handle. You do have an app. Tell us about it, please.
So the app was recently just developed by guys called Benefit in Australia. They work with another Instagrammer who's doing golf fitness. We're actually quite close. And it has 3 basic options on it. The newest one is our like monthly program. So that one basically is it's a subscription model. You'll get up to 20 workouts per month. And I develop those on a topic that I choose throughout the year. So each month we'll have a different topic. So this month is mobility and end range movement. And basically that focuses on all the hip, not the hip joints, all the joints within the movement of a golfer that are applicable to the golf swing that we try and mobilize, and then how to find the maximum range and work within like strength patterns on those range of movements as well.
Perfect.
And then the next month is different.
Guessing it's in the App Store. What's the app's name?
It's a web-based app. So you just have to you basically go through our link in our bio. Once you click it, then you can add it straight to your home screen.
And the bio, for the folks who aren't on Instagram, what is the URL? Can you get that for us there?
Yes, it is. It's benefit with 2 I's.me / the Golf Athlete X.
Spell that out for us one time.
The full thing?
Yes, please.
BENE.
Yeah.
FIIT.me / the Golf Athlete X.
Right.
I don't know why I did it with my fingers there. I don't know if that helps.
Movement. You're in a blue zone. Hey, get ready, because our global tribe, they're informed. They want to play good golf, and a lot of folks are interested in getting themselves in shape. So I really appreciate you. This was excellent. I look forward to next time. I love the sign off that you gave us, and I just want you to elaborate on that one more time when you said, look, this is up to you. And then you talked the blue zone thing too, where in the end, the responsibility rests with us. Like I know I can watch these cool things of yours all day long on Instagram, but if I'm watching them, I'm not getting better. It's time just now, and I'll let you have the floor to go out and do it.
I think when it comes to stuff like this, like I guess I'm a victim for it as well. Whereas you watch it and then you say you're going to do it, but at the end of the day, like that, without action, you're never really going to get anywhere. So put in whatever you see or you learn, or say if you purchase a program or you go for a golf lesson, put it into practice, and doing that day in, day out. The dedication and the commitment and the consistency is what's going to give you your results, and you're in control of it. Like I'm a firm believer, and you guys might be the same here, whoever's listening, of if you want something, you'll make time for it and you will do it. All right. And if you're not 100% passionate about that area, or you're not committed to it, then it's not something that you're willing to sacrifice or do something for, as example. So I know down like the fitness avenue or your golfers avenues, these guys have sacrificed hours of time with maybe their family, their friends, to put in that hard work, that dedication to achieve something that might have been non-existent for them, and I think for us guys out there who want to get better at golf and exhibit more specificity in their training programs or improve their mobility, it's not difficult. You guys can all do it. It just requires, like, you've got all the videos on YouTube and Instagram here. Like, just put it into practice.
Yeah. Stop saving them, because I know you got hundreds of saved things out there. Go and do go and do just one. Kieran, this has been tremendous. I appreciate you making time for us. You're doing God's work, man. I really appreciate you. Thanks for joining us.
I really appreciate that, Matt. Thank you very much.